Hello and welcome to another fun-filled edition of Adam's Music Box, where today we're talking all about Jimi Hendrix because it was on this day in 1970 that he died at the age of 27. Hence, we have the 27 Club because a number of other young musicians died at the same age. Now, Jimi Hendrix is someone whose name will always be ubiquitous when we talk about the guitar and when we talk about rock music more generally. But to me, the most important thing to Jimi Hendrix is when you look not at what came after him and his tremendous influence on others, including one of his students and one of my very favorite artists of all time, Ernie Isley. Who we've talked about before. But I think what's really interesting is to talk about what came before Jimi Hendrix in terms of the electrical guitar, because we've had a lot of great electric guitarists prior to Jimi Hendrix. You've had Chet Atkins, you've had Les Paul himself, you had great people in the jazz world, people like Wes Montgomery, you've had people like Grant Green, another great jazz guitarist, and in the rock world, you had people like Eric Clapton and Pete Townsend, all of whom came before Jimi Hendrix and all of whom were great. So why did Jimi Hendrix change everything? And I mean everything. And there are a few clear, objective musical answers that are very eye-opening. Jimi Hendrix pushed the electric guitar into an area that no one ever had. And it wasn't as though he was totally reinventing the technique of electric guitar. He had a unique technique, but he wasn't by any means reinventing the way the instrument was played, nor was he inventing equipment used to play it or enhance it. He didn't invent amplification systems. He didn't invent effects pedals. Guitar synths were still a number of years away. But what he did is take the existing instrument, existing amplification systems, and existing effects pedals, and he used them to make the electric guitar sound as different from the acoustic guitar as humanly possible. And in doing so, he was able to hone in a technique that, in terms of both its virtuosity, in terms of the playing itself, and in terms of the sounds he created, it sounded and even, dare I say, felt like nothing before. That was the genius of Hendrix. He did things with the instrument that no one else thought to do and no one else dared to do. Now, people in the jazz world at the time, the electric guitar was being played in a manner that was more similar to the acoustic than later styles of electric guitar playing. So while Wes Montgomery and Grant Green were very much pioneers and geniuses, some of my favorite musicians ever, when it comes to the electric guitar, they didn't pile on effects. They were playing with what they call a clean tone, and it was just a different timbre than acoustic guitar, different kinds of natural sustain because the electric guitar naturally has more sustain, but it wasn't miles away from acoustic guitar. And you could say the same on the country side of things, whether we're talking about Chet Atkins or sort of the country stroke proto rock and roll, if you will, of Les Paul. And we could also say the same things of people like Chuck Berry, who, while playing the guitar, is best known as a singer-songwriter rather than a kind of guitar wizard, if you will. The hard rocking bands at that time were generally from the UK, and Eric Clapton and Pete Townsend, and later on Peter Green, were the most famous guitarists in that genre. And all of them did push the guitar into new boundaries, but not so different as Hendrix. With Clapton and with Peter Green, and certainly with Pete Townsend, you could always tell that, right, this is a louder instrument with more natural reverb and sustain than the kind of acoustic guitar that you could pick up quite cheaply at the corner music shop. Hendrix did something totally different. He said, right, this might look like your typical guitar, albeit a left-handed model, but I'm going to do things with it that are different. In the same way that visually Beethoven's orchestra and the orchestra of Haydn might look similar, but they sound very different because one composer took the orchestra and did things with it that nobody else ever thought to do. And that really is and always will be the genius of Jimi Hendrix. Apart from the fact that he was a great songwriter, a brilliant performer, and a pioneer for so many other reasons in terms of the art of performance. But for me, that is the biggest takeaway of his legacy. He allowed the electric guitar to be free to be itself. And everyone else after him really owes him a debt of gratitude for that. Like, subscribe. We will see you next time. Take care.